Hello, once again, and welcome back to the Side Quest Sages podcast. My name is Luke Tatum. I am the sage of floating disembodied heads and hands.
And I'm Corey Sins, the sage of pieces of eight. Yeah.
All right. Heck yeah. I love it. The floating disembodied heads and hands, I thought was just a one-off thing, but then I was thinking about Andross in the Star Fox games. So
Recently,
there
of
you go.
course. Why wouldn't you?
There's enough duplication that I decided to run with it. So we are back. This is going to be our final episode. Hell or high water, whatever idiom you want to insert. This is the final Chrono Trigger episode. This is episode 12 of our Chrono Trigger analysis. If for some reason this is your first episode, please do not start here unless you're a Chrono Trigger veteran. This will be very confusing. Also, it will ruin a lot of stuff. So we're going to talk about every ending today, although some of them more than others. And we're going to, kind of close things off, give our final thoughts, move on to our next thing. The voting is over for our next game that we will play. Chrono Trigger was, our first game. Our second game is going to be Golden Sun for the Game Boy Advance. And as I started to put my research notes together for this game, which I've just started, but I am remembering just how much the first and second games go together. In fact, Golden Sun 1 and 2 were originally the same game, and they had to split it apart because of how much space there really isn't on a Game Boy Advance cartridge. So we're probably going to play both. They're not horribly long games, but we're probably just going to have to do both together to really analyze the first. We kind of have to play the second one. So that's probably happening. Stay tuned. Give us some topics and thoughts if you're over on the Patreon for anything that you'd like to see. In the meantime, the free tier can vote. The other tiers that are paid can help us pick games for future polls and other things. So go check that out. All right, bookkeeping aside, we're jumping back in. Spoiler time. Please click off the video. It's your last warning. So we did all the side quests in the previous episode. So we did Frog's story and we did Robo's story. We kind of did all that, fleshed it all out. And the end of the game is before us. Now, you have a lot of choices, and we're going to talk about kind of the element of choice a bit later, but you have a lot of choices for how to proceed. You can go to the bucket at the end of time, which has been available to you almost the entire game, and fight the final boss from there. You can go to the Black Omen, which is in almost every era, that is floating and reflecting the sun beautifully, as that one NPC says. And you can just go through that. There's a whole series of fights and stuff. It's a really cool area. It looks just like the Undersea Palace a lot of the time. And I think it's a really cool dungeon. I recommend doing it. More XP, etc., etc. Grind for those final dual techs if you want. By the way, I have a correction to make. I wasn't planning this. It's not on my script, but I was like, I don't know how you get triple techs with Magus or whatever. All the gemstones, there's a black gemstone, a blue gemstone. There's several different colors. All of those are equipable items that will grant a triple tech with Magus. So he can only do triple techs, but he can get a lot of cool ones with these different gemstones. So it's kind of an interesting thing. But
side note on that, I actually did not employ any of the gems properly because I could not, without looking up, I could not figure them out, and I didn't want to look them up. So we powered through. Luminaire was a huge help.
It's such a good ability. I mean, we talked about this, I think, in the last episode, but like Chrono's really super strong. Like if you bring him back to life, he is a very powerful guy. So it is good. It's good to do that, especially if it's your first time playing. Now, as you run through the game maybe multiple times to get all the endings and stuff like that, I mean, you'll get so strong that it doesn't matter who's in your party to some extent. But yeah, he is definitely very, very strong. And you'll max out all his stats if you keep leveling him up and giving him the capsules for the various stat increases. Yeah, Luminaire, though, amazing. So I chose to enter the Black Omen in 12,000 BC, but it's the same area regardless of where you go. And I don't have a whole lot of notes on the Black Omen itself. It's there's not a lot of story revelations until you get kind of to the very end of it, which leads right into the Lavos fight. But I do love the music here. Again, like all this kind of, you know, futuristic sort of sounds that start to enter. It's a very dramatic song. You know, it's a lot of tension. It's really cool. It's a really cool song. I might insert that into the show as I have been doing. But there is a just a little funny aside that I want to make. So eventually you'll encounter two news, the round guys, and there's one on the left, and he asks if you want to shop or just chat, and then there's one on the right, and he will let you leave if you want to like get out of the Black Omen and go back out and do other stuff. But the one on the left, you know, it's a question: do you want to chat or shop? And if you say just chat, he'll say, "Hard to make a living here." Like,
Yeah, right. Yeah. Who's been stopping by? You know,
it's
I mean,
just like
maybe the monsters and baddies, I guess, you know, need some.
the absurdity of opening a shop in the final dungeon. You know, like the most dangerous place in any timeline, basically. It's hilarious. I
I
like that
just
very self-referential, like self-aware humor. You know, it's like, well, you got to provide some place for the player to buy items. So what do you do? Do you make a joke out of it? Do you just have some, you know, random shopkeeper that just is there and you just don't explain it? Do you put a vending machine in there? Like, I mean, what do you do, right? And so that is a very funny way to solve that problem. I like
I
it.
imagine the new just standing out with, you know, he's got like the red team, blue team thing, and he just flips it and then goes
Yeah,
back and, you know,
it's
selling to
just,
both the good guys, the bad guys, or
oh,
whatever you
that's
want
right.
to say. It's
I'm,
just,
I'm playing both sides, so I always come out on top. You know.
that's right.
So I love that. You do fight some like Gato robots for some reason. They're in here, like whatever. I don't know why that is a thing. And then several boss fights are, you know, like mini bosses, I would say. The Mega Mutant, you fight a couple of forms of the Mega Mutant, and you fight a Lavos spawn again, just like you do on Death Peak if you revive Chrono. And you enter a room with floating copies of the party members, like suspended in columns of light. So, very chilling, eerie, what the heck is going on here kind of a moment. I actually, for the first time, realized that this is just like the approach to the Mammon Machine in the Ocean Palace. The first time you're kind of making this same progression or a similar progression.
Yeah.
And so the kind of pattern of lights and all that, it looks very much like that. And it's interesting. I was curious if you had any thoughts about this. There's some dialogue the queen has that I maybe want to talk about because we're about to fight the queen there. And you have back to back to back boss fights. I mean, this is not like it's you're done leveling up. You know, we're going
Yeah.
basically.
You don't get any, you really don't get breathing room. You know, going to the tubes in that same room, there's reliefs in the wall that have what look like are statuettes of the Mammon Machine itself. So
Mm-hmm,
it's kind of
mm-hmm.
it's kind of coming all to a head. I don't remember exactly what she had said about about the imitations or the people in the tubes, but it felt like it kind of confirmed that we may not be the only ones
Mm.
for me. There could be, we've talked about time. The name of the damn game is Chrono, but is time is more than just end to end. There could be parallel times and things like that. So I kind of thought of it as that, or even as a clone. Um, why would they clone? I don't know. Why
Well,
why did that one guy have a full, you know yeah, a doll of Chrono? Lots of weird questions to answer.
unfortunately, there is not an ending where Norstein Beckler is like the secret ultra antagonist, like behind Lavos is Norstein Beckler pulling the strings. That would be quite insane. But I'll just read the dialogue. Okay, so you fight the queen, big surprise, right? She's kind of the main antagonist that has a distinct will. Lavos is a chthonic horror from space. So the queen is kind of a proxy for the evil of Lavos that doesn't talk. And so Queen Zeal, at one point, she says, I know what you have seen. It is your futures that slumber in this hall. Destiny in its essential form. All the dreams that might have been, all the happiness and sorrow you might have known, your tomorrow as it has been witnessed. And
Mm.
so, again, this is not really something that I've latched onto in previous playthroughs, right? By the time you get here, it's like, okay, I'm ready to lock in and fight 5 bosses in a row, whatever. But I kind of took pause this time and spent a little bit more time on it and thought about this a little bit more. And so it's kind of this. I think of this from two angles. One is we will learn Lavos is taking in all of the biological data, all of the DNA and stuff from all of the creatures on the entire planet. So basically, what Lavos is a machine to further refine its own genetic code to create copies of itself to go out to other planets to do that again. Right. So it is a self replication, self perfection machine. And that's interesting.
Mhm.
But also, you have this kind of breakdown of what even makes sense for will itself to be able to accomplish, right? It's like anything that anybody can dream. This is where we kind of make a complete circle out of this whole idea of Dreamstone and the Dream Project, and everything has the word dream in it, right? And so this is the dreams of your party. How is this encapsulated in this space? Who knows, right? But are they observing possible other timelines? Are they watching and laughing at the futility of these, humans and other characters, right? Doing all these other things. It's like it's a microcosmic sort of playground where they have copies of you. Could they just spawn another clone of you if something happened to you, with enough time and enough power and enough whatever, energy from Lavos, whatever it is? It's just, some ideas. They're not really explored, but
Right.
it's
Ice
cosmic
dancers.
horror.
They could inhabit his body and control Chrono, but he looks like Chrono.
Yeah.
Hell, he doesn't even have to say anything.
There's some really weird fan theories about stuff that I don't know a lot about, but because you kind of have a very, very wide scope at the very end of this game. Like all kinds of crazy stuff could be going on. I don't know, and it's not fleshed out, so you don't know either. Right. But yeah, the whole thing is very weird. And then, the queen, obviously, she fights you. I saved all of her dialogue here. I just copy and paste from a big script, which, we should probably link at some point. But she's going to, once she decides that she can't win, she's going to feed you to the mammon machine. And so you'll be made one with the Black Omen and Lavos and her. So basically, the distinction even between the Mammon Machine and Lavos itself and the Queen, they're all kind of like becoming one thing. But really, I think what we're meant to take from that is that Lavos is subsuming and absorbing everything, right? it is the end point. The queen has no control in this situation, right?
Right.
She's drunk on the idea of everlasting life, but if everlasting life is ultimate subservience to another being, I mean, then okay, like you could certainly debate whether or not that is desirable, or what whether or not that is what she is hoping to achieve in the first place. But as her will kind of gives way, she wants what Lavos wants, whatever that is. You know, she doesn't really have her original intent anymore, perhaps. So interesting things there, certainly. It's so cool too. And then you
I
fight
think it
the
kind of
face and hand thing. Go ahead.
I don't see Zeal as having being a person anymore. She's just an extension of Lavos at this point.
Yeah.
I don't think that she's she's already rejected her children in very, very early on, got rid of everybody because it didn't serve Lavas's purposes. Whether she even has all of that, I don't think. I'm kind of reminded of a story I like to tell people, and it's I have in my garage a pretty extensive spider web in a corner of a window, and in the summer we get bugs, and I'm whacking all the flies and things like that, and I've got this in my head to feed my window spider, and so I'll stick a little fly in there from time to time. And it kind of reminds me of like the oh shoot, his name wrote the stories of the elder ones in the 20s. I just totally blanked out on his name. um oh, it's over there. I'm not gonna dig out the book. uh so I'm thinking of like these monstrosities outside of time, titans that are just producing this madness, which when
You talking about
he was writing
Lovecraft
about,
or no?
there we go, Lovecraft,
Okay,
thank
okay,
you.
okay.
um you know I think of that with in the same sense. Like, am I this elder being? Am I this spider is completely out of anything that I don't even know what the spider wants besides food. I just toss something. In respect to that, though, it's still a similar idea where I see Lavos as feeding Zeal just a little bit, but doesn't care for it, doesn't know it. I shouldn't say that. I do care for my window spider. It did perish, but
Oh man,
because we
I'm
came into
sorry.
winter. But
I'm sorry
yeah,
for your loss.
R.I.P. Yeah, please respect my family at this time of mourning. No, but so getting off the trail to say that I see him as an elder being that doesn't really understand or care for anything other than what adds to it, and
Right.
it we're ants. It doesn't matter in this game. So, and in that same respect, same with Zeal. Zeal is a very um real tool for him, but at the same time could have chosen anybody or just do it himself, perhaps.
Right, right. Well, it's got kind of the one ring elements and stuff like that too, you know, just so happens that it's Queen Zeal. You know, it plays out the way that it plays out, but you could imagine that, you know, King Guardia in one of the timelines, one of the eras,
Sure.
you know, somehow is latched onto by Lavos and starts to degrade, or you know, Ozzy or any of these characters, right? They could have had a very different way of behaving. Now, if it was Ozzy, it wouldn't be quite so dark, I guess, of a plot line because he's so silly and embarrassingly bad at everything. But yeah, you know, I'm
That
just
would
saying,
be
right?
that would be a good parody. Just everything going wrong for Lavos's mission because he chose Ozzy or something, or
Yeah,
someone
of
like
all the
Ozzy.
incompetent mortals, that would be funny. That would be funny. So yeah, I mean, we kind of go through again multiple boss fights. You fight Zeal, then you fight the Mammon Machine itself, then you fight Zeal as this floating disembodied like mask thing and hands, and you have to be real careful. I forgot all about the trick to this boss fight, and so if you just walk into that fight with triple techs, you will hit all three parts, and all three parts will do a triple tech counterattack, like a really powerful counterattack. And so my party was wiped out. And I was like, oh, well, that was a mistake. So I had to redo the whole thing. I had to do all three fights again to to get back to Lavos. But don't do that. But
Yeah.
surely you've already done the finish the game if you're watching this. So, obviously the queen is not happy when she's losing. She calls you maggots. And Magus has a good line if Magus is with you. He'll say, "Fool, no thing, no life can last forever. You are deceived, a pitiful plight, one deserving of mercy at least." And he says, "I will put an end to all this." So he will swing at her. There's a slightly different playing out of this scene depending on whether or not Magus is with you. So that doesn't have to happen necessarily, but kind of cool. And that is the lead up to the face and two hands thing. Now, I'm just scanning my notes here. The next thing I have is the Lavos fight. So like the Omen is destroyed though, right? As you enter into the Lavos fight, it's not like that you go into a new room and that's where Lavos is. The Black Omen itself dissolves into the sea or whatever, into the dimension that Lavos inhabits or whatever. And maybe I have a note here. Does this tie into the idea that the party members are in those chambers and in the Black Omen before the Black Omen dissolved, right? So like, is all of this like becoming Lavos? Is Lavos about to consume all the ideas of the Black Omen or something? I don't know.
Mm.
Just something that I thought of and typed when I was playing. But Robo says after you win, if Robo's with you, he'll say, I detect even more powerful life force inside Lavos's shell. Frog will say, this is but its armor. And you go inside. And so, you fight the main thing that you've known as Lavos the whole game, only to find out that little headpiece disappears and there's more inside. Which, though, I mean, the boss fight itself is cool. I don't know how much you want to talk about this, but it'll sort of take on the aspects of different bosses that you fought in the past, tying into this idea that it is absorbing the DNA and the powerful beings from across the timelines. It's like, hey, this is worthy of integration. Let me take that power.
It's like it's the accumulated consequences of all the time kind of just being presented.
Yeah.
And I think it was a great tie back. It was not difficult generally, but it's like, oh, yeah, you have to do this way. Had to kind of recall.
Not that they're hard, but like it at least shows you a picture. So you go, oh yeah, you got to hit this part first or whatever, and there is a lot of, we touched on this a long time ago, but there's a lot of expectation subversion in this game, right? Where it's like, oh, you're going to have to take out the little guys and then attack the one in the middle or whatever. Like there's certain assumptions that you make, whether you think about them or not, about how you should fight a boss, right? And especially if you're a seasoned gamer, which this game I think very much is for gamers, but it's fun. They're easy. The health is low, just like they originally were when you fought these bosses before. But it's like, okay, cool, that didn't work. I'll shift to another one. Let me try a different boss form. Oh, okay, well that didn't work either. Let me try another one. And you sort of go through this, then defeat the face or the head of the Lavos shell. Another little like smart way that this game kind of does things, right, is you fought Lavos spawn in the past. If you attack the shell, it would do big attacks and like reflect damage back at you and do all this crazy stuff. But if you attack the head, it doesn't do that. And then the head would get destroyed and then you win. And so again, it's teaching you kind of what to go into the final boss expecting. And only to shatter your expectations and go, hey, guess what? There's more. So you go inside. It's kind of creepy. You know what I mean? It's like a cave, and you hear like a thrumming heartbeat, and it's like a breathing sound. Like the sound effects are crazy in there. I mean,
Yeah, it was
ugh. I'm inside of a giant tick. That is weird, right?
it really felt like a Russian nesting doll by the time I got through the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and again, this is a trope. So a lot of JRPG tropes trace back to Chrono Trigger. Or Chrono Trigger is in some sense a response to JRPG tropes that had started to emerge before, but then because of how popular this game was and stuff, it's like it sort of codified things. One of those is waking up in bed and having the sunlight coming in and like your mother waking you up in bed or whatever. Like there's a very common thing that is referenced in all kinds of games. But we'll talk more about that in a second. So yeah, you go and you fight this weird connected, like,
Yeah.
I don't even know what you would call this, bug looking thing with like tubes coming off of it. I don't know what to call that.
I don't know, but in the beginning of that fight, his like nipples shoot out laser beams and stuff, and I wasn't
Hey, I
sure
mean,
what to make of that, but
that
teach
is
their own. I won't judge. I won't king
that is a
shame.
thing, I guess. That is JRPG land. I don't know. So Robo will say if you have Robo, which I love Robo because he gives you like sciency information. It's not like a human scientist like Luca, but just, he has in his data banks all kinds of information that doesn't even make sense for him to have. So, like from a lore building standpoint, I really like to have Robo with me. So he says, that was Lavos's goal, storing and analyzing the genetic code of every creature on this planet. He aimed to use it all to induce self evolution into the ultimate form of life. His offensive capabilities are incalculable. My sensors are overheating. And so, whatever. But that is kind of confirmation of what we were talking about before. And then whoever you have with you will give kind of like a final, like anime, we're going to beat the bad guy for real this time kind of one liner. There's some pretty cool lines that people will say depending on who you have with you. But like Robo says, I was given life by human hands, but life is life. I am no different from Luca and the others. This planet is my home. And he'll hunker
Strike
down
a
to fight.
pose.
Yeah, right. I almost used a picture of you doing some kind of angry fist pump thing for the thumbnail for the last episode, but I didn't. So.
Well, there, I gave you one. Pause for a moment too, so you could.
Your elbow was sticking out too far in that pose, and that's why I didn't use it. But anyway, it was going to cover up Chrono because I have Chrono's resurrection as the thumbnail. I don't want to talk too shop in the episode, I guess. Thank you. That's more like Chrono, like waking up out of bed right there. So now you beat that, which is a lot harder than the shell, right? And that is not the final boss either. So you enter into the final battle, and this is against the Lavos core, which this is the final little pull the rug out from under you expectation subversion little thing. The actual thing that you have to beat is the right piece. So it's like a big enemy and then a left piece and a right piece. And the left and right look the same. The right piece is the Lavos core. That is the final boss. And so that's kind of tricky to manage. You have to like decide how you're going to juggle this fight
Yep.
because the right piece will resurrect the center and left pieces, but it's only vulnerable while it's resurrecting the other two pieces or one of the other two pieces, depending on how you play. So that's it takes some time. That is not a short fight. At least for me, it wasn't.
No, I absolutely picked the wrong choice until I got to the right one. I picked the middle. Oops, excuse me. They like I have to apologize to my microphones.
I'm so sorry.
If I always say please and thank you to my technology. Just it's the right thing to do. I
That's right.
believe it. No. Um,
You're
so
costing
I picked the
ChatGPT millions of dollars every time you do that. Stop. Cut it out.
burning through all the GPUs and water. You know. So I picked the middle Lavos, got him, and then was confused when I'm like, oh, okay, I just have to. And then it came back, and then I'm like, okay, maybe I have to focus. And then I picked the left one, the because it had a shield on most of the time.
Right.
Or it would get healed by magic, is
Right.
what it was.
Right.
Um, and so I'm like, oh, maybe this is it. No, no. So it took a little trial and error. And I think my strategy was the best strategy that I had was um, do it all, like focus on killing the middle and doing a little bit of damage to the right one as you do so, because it would be like 100 damage versus 1,000, two
Right.
thousand damage,
Right.
which is not nothing. It added up, and then finally, once the shields are down, then it was just like full bore, everybody, boom, 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 as best we can in between kneeling.
Yeah, and depending on who you have with you too, it can be a little tricky, like because you've got to heal pretty often in this fight if you're appropriately leveled. If you haven't been like grinding or doing anything crazy to get really highly leveled, then it's not like easy. It's not a walk in the park, And so
I, okay.
take out the middle and then attack the right. Depending on who you have in your party, it can be kind of tricky to juggle like the healing because like your hard hitter might also be your healer. I had Robo, he kind of falls into that category. And it's like, okay, and it's pretty much just Chrono sometimes for me, wailing on the Lavos core. But of course he's super strong, so it works. But yeah, it's a long boss fight. And that's just how it is. But you win. And I love the ending of this game. I really, truly love the ending to this game. There is a lot of resolution of stuff. There is a lot of variation of the main ending. Now,
Yeah.
there are a bunch of endings, but this is not like a Mass Effect or a Knights of the Old Republic or BioWare type of thing where it's like there's a good ending, a bad ending, and a neutral ending or something like that. There's the good ending, which is what we're all going to get if you're kind of doing what we've been doing on this, with some variations depending on specific choices that you make. We're not going to be exhaustive. There's lots of wonderful guides for how the variations of the ending work and stuff, but it's a great ending. And so there's Lean's bell wakes you. Oh, I forgot to say the final Lavos fight. The moment that we decided we were going to do this podcast and do a full Chrono Trigger analysis, I started humming that final boss theme. It's called World Revolution. I love that song. I love it to death. Like I was like, oh my god, we're gonna get to listen to that song. It's the first thing I thought.
On a side note with the music, there was I think you actually turned me onto this album, but it's by Pontus Hultgren, Pontus, last name Hultgren, Hultgren, and I shared the song with you at the very least. I'm
Okay,
pretty
yeah.
sure because you had the whole list of songs, and I maybe I came off of it from looking at one of those, but his album is Beyond the Flow of Time, which is an arrangement
Yeah, an arrangement
of
of the,
all
yeah.
of
Okay,
all
yeah,
of the Chrono Trigger songs, and it is wonderful,
yeah,
so
yeah.
wonderful. So wanted to put that out there.
I had forgotten the name. I was like, I don't know who the hell
That's
that
okay.
is.
Oh, I know, and that's so we'll probably link that in some
Yes.
capacity because it is. I was listening to it beforehand, and in fact, I got so frustrated with Facebook muting my music as I was doom scrolling that I uninstalled my app in a fit of temper because I wanted. No, I am preparing myself for my podcast. So
You sent me a screenshot of your messages about this or whatever. I was like, what are you talking about?
that's what
That's
that was
so
from.
funny. That is so funny. So, you know, the I guess let me summarize kind of the ending really in short terms, right? So you wake up again, it's Lean's bell again. It's the iconic opening basically again, but a soldier is waking you up instead of your mother. And he informs you that you're not going to be executed after all. The king has put a stay on your execution. And then you go to meet with the king, and like all of it's like a fake drama around whether or not you're going to be executed, right? And then all of the other mainline Guardia people come out from like hidden places. And so, as it turns out, Kino and Ayla from 65 million BC, we have an unbroken lineage all the way through the whole game. So, Kino and Ayla, the Guardia line, the Doan from 2300 AD, the guy in, what is it, Eris Dome,
There's some, yeah.
he is also, the guy who is going to work to raise the plant from this one seed that you find. All of these people are in the same line, which means that you and Marl, according to this ending, are Doan's ancestor. Right, you are the
I
progenitor
don't know
of
why I did not because I they got married and I don't know why I didn't think of that.
Chrono's the
You
only red-haired one. He is the red-headed stepchild of the entire thing. It's like blondies all the way down, right? Um, except for Chrono. So whatever, surprise, plot twist. But I mean, Marl is very much presented as the you know love interest of the story, right?
yeah,
So it's not too far fetched. Now, I just really enjoyed that. Then you have the Millennial Fair and the Moonlight Parade, right?
yeah.
So the Moonlight Parade that the Chancellor, who was stuffed in the chest, was talking about getting ready for, and you're like, what? What is the Moonlight Parade? It's this. It's the last night of the Millennial Fair. And so Melchior has some great dialogue here. He says, I don't suspect there will be much need for weapons anymore. My days as a smith may be at an end. But looking up at that beautiful sky, it's hard to be worried about something like that. And Luca will say, do you remember that talk we had? Marl will say, you mean about whether our lives flash by before we die? Luca says, yeah, I get the feeling that entity is finally at rest too. And Marl says, yes, I feel it too. So we have to return to the question of the entity and what is the entity. Do you have any further thoughts on this upon completing the game?
I still feel like there's multiple realities. So if we I have been reading into Gnosticism again, and so it kind of feels a little bit like that, where the Lavos being the demiurge of sorts,
Mm,
and so there's more to this. Is just one iteration of creation. It's certainly flawed, but we did what we could to heal it in our ways. We couldn't control everything. It's just like in real life. There are so many more things outside of our control, but we can influence the things that we have influence over. Um, and for Chrono, it was the silent. I'm zero ego. I'm just going to do it.
right.
Frog has to build up to it. He has to understand himself and push past what he sees are inequities to join and affect change. And the change started within himself first. So lots of different things. The entity, getting back to your question, could be the the real the real controller of time and space, who's
Right,
not
which
or has.
we can get way deep into Gnosticism. I know you and I have both been kind of doing some research on this here recently. I was watching a video about it. You and I were texting about Gnostic ideas a bit. And, so we could certainly go really, really far with that. I will maybe head that off a little and just say that the official canon answer to the entity question, you may not know this even if you played Chrono Trigger in 1995, is the planet. The planet is the entity. And so like
Oh,
the
okay.
Earth, I'm going to say Earth because it's easier to say, even though I know that this is not canonically on the planet Earth. Okay, just let me say it. Okay. So the Earth is dying, right? That is kind of the idea. The parasitic Lavos is kind of harvesting everything from the earth, using that to reproduce and to go elsewhere. And so it's the earth is the biggest victim, if you will, right? And so to think that the planet itself has a will and a life force and a lifespan. This is a very popular idea in other games of this time, other Final Fantasy games, other, you know, stuff. Final Fantasy VII has this idea of a life stream that is the spirit of the planet and all this stuff. So this is a very popular idea at this time. And so Chrono Trigger is kind of another take on that. But so the idea that the planet is having its life flash before its eyes, all of these episodes in the timeline are times in the planet's life, right? That you don't go to some other planet, right? It's all on this one planet.
Right.
So the Earth is like, well, I guess 1999 is the end or whatever, it becomes this kind of gray, desolate nothingness with no living things. I know there's the plant in 2300 AD, the seedling, but that's kind of the idea, right? Is like, what if the Earth, had a kind of an independent will, and so the Earth is what creates the gates, the time gates. It is through you. It's that idea of like the universe. We are the universe. It's experiencing itself, right?
Sure.
We are the planet experiencing itself, and so it is giving an opportunity to inhabitants of the earth to go to these different times to try to re-experience different moments, right? And yes, Lavos is the common link. Lavos is present in all those times. Now, why does the earth have the ability to manipulate time? I don't know. But it does. So you just have to kind of run with that. But there is this idea. I believe I heard this on the Resonant Arc podcast at one point. They were talking about, it's not a Chrono Trigger thing. I've never seen their Chrono Trigger stuff, if they even have done an analysis of Chrono Trigger. I'm sure they probably have. But Kaysen on the Resonant Arc podcast will talk about, every now and again, he's brought up the idea that, if you zoom far enough out and you sped up time enough, right? The Earth has cycles and phases and like ice ages and warming phases, and so if you were to have time lapse footage from the same position, like for millions of years, you would see kind of like a breathing, you know what I mean? Like you would see
Sure.
sort of a
Absolutely.
heartbeat or that kind of a thing. And so it's not that weird and abstract to just think about that in that scale and to go, oh, yeah, I guess the earth is a living thing in a certain manner of speaking. You know what I mean? So
Love that
that is,
imagery. That's
yeah,
fantastic. And thanks for sharing that.
I wish I could take credit for it. You know what I mean? But like, so shout out to Resonant Arc. They are the bomb. I love those guys.
That
Uh,
really hits home, especially once you get inside the Lavos shell and you experience that kind of life inside of him too. Just it's the same similar thing there.
right.
Um,
Yeah. He's been around for 65 million years. He, Lavos,
it,
it,
yeah.
whatever.
Now, here's a question I had pop in my head: was the Earth doomed 65 million years ago already before Lavos? And is Lavos just a Noah's Ark saving the
Ooh.
best of what's going to be lost? We could be, we've already kind of determined that, yeah, Lavos isn't um good for humanity or the monsters or anything living on Earth, or Earth itself, perhaps. But if it was inevitable to happen, wouldn't it be better to have Lavos come by and save the best of the best and propagate?
Well, and this goes back to Gnosticism, I would say, right? Is the God of the Old Testament a wicked and evil punisher, an imperfect being with rages, or is it the same God as the New Testament or whatever, right? You get into all that all day long. That's very fascinating. I'm not sure that Chrono Trigger has a opinion on that question.
Right.
but that would be really, really fun to get more into those questions. And I think we will with some other games that we'll eventually play, right? But Gnosticism, existentialism, some of these things are very relevant to a lot of these games from this time, especially. And so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you make the case that Lavos isn't evil, but since every story has to take place from the perspective of someone, otherwise it's just a boring textbook and it's not fun, right? The characters that we are invested in certainly see Lavos as a threat, right?
Right.
And so are you on Team Earth or are you on Team Space Tick? You know what I'm saying?
I didn't know we were drawing lines on the podcast here.
Yeah, I mean, you better have an answer for me, baby. I'm just kidding. So but
I'm gonna have to block you. You don't believe in my worldview.
yeah, we're done. This show is over. So there's an anime cutscene after this, getting kind of back on track. And then I want to talk about existentialism, and then we got to hit the other 12 endings, 13 endings. So who knows, man?
We'll blow past them.
Anime cutscene, pretty cool. Chrono and Marl get married. Alo and Kina get married. I think I just did that wrong. Ayla and Kino. I think I just flipped their vowels. They get married. Frog turns back to Glenn. He becomes a knight. Melchior celebrates with Chrono and Marl. Luca makes a little robot that looks like Robo. Super fun. Luca finds a baby in the woods with a pendant around its neck. It is presumed to be Shala's pendant. I will tell you who this is. There is no way that you would know this, okay? It is not possible to know who this is. This is another thing that has been done to tie the game into Chrono Cross, the sort of quasi sequel to Chrono Trigger. The baby is Kid, who is one of the protagonists, a character named Kid, not a kid. I'm not being vague. So, Kid is like the second character you get, I believe, in Chrono Cross. And there you have it. I will let you play that game if you want to know more. Then purple gates will appear after you win the game. What did you say?
I said, thanks for your permission.
Oh, yeah. Purple gates will appear in 1000 AD, 2300 AD, and 12,000 BC. And that opens up the dimensional vortex, which will give you the optional final ending, which is a proper tie in to Chrono Cross, even though I don't like that ending. It exists, and we're going to talk about it in a minute. So you have to beat the game once in order to get the other ending. You don't actually have to play the game 2 times to get the other ending. You can sort of like back out. There's a method you can look up to get right to it. But my goodness, that would be very hard, I think, because from what I understand, it's very difficult. So existentialism, the overall message of the game, I'll harp on that for a second. Then we'll talk about all the other endings. We'll kind of hop through those pretty fast. So Max Darrett, who is a YouTuber, Max Darrett is just the channel name, yellow like Simpsons looking character. He has a Chrono Trigger analysis where he calls Chrono Trigger an existential masterpiece. And existentialism is not a thing that I see discussed too terribly much these days, but I think that's a very appropriate way to kind of look at this game as being an existentialist game or commentary. And so, one of the main questions of existentialism, and we're talking about thinkers like Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, Heidegger, Jean Paul Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir, Albert Camus, who I really like. He wouldn't call himself an existentialist, but he's often grouped in that grouping as well. So, one of the main questions is whether existence precedes essence or whether essence precedes existence. So the famous example is like if you have a hammer, someone had to have the idea, the essence, they had to think of what they were trying to do in order to make a hammer. Right? You don't just make a hammer. That is a thing that is made to do a thing. And so human beings, are we hammers where like God or whatever, because there are atheist existentialists and there are Christian existentialists. It's not a religious commentary, it's a philosophy.
Right.
And so are human beings a thing that is made to do something? Do you have an essence that is dictated to you? Or do you exist and then you have to determine what your essence is? Are you deciding to be a good person when you do a good deed by doing the thing? Or are you a good person, therefore you do good things? Or vice versa, bad things, whatever thing. Like, are you born of a certain moral character with a certain talent, with a certain purpose, with a certain destiny? Or, and this is something that kind of emerged in response to the world wars and stuff, the idea of existentialism. The existentialist would say, no, you are an existing thing, a person, and you are shaping, you are fully responsible and bear the full weight of determining what your future and who you are. And so in that sense, I would say I am an existentialist.
I kind of
uh,
thought that. I kind of go between existentialist and absurdism.
yeah, well, absurdism is fun too, right? But are you an absurdist sophist? Never mind. But
Let's,
you know,
let's
Albert Camus. Since I brought him up, my favorite Camus quote is, "The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion." That appears to not be a direct quote, although it is often used. It seems to be just kind of an amalgam of his ideas and writings in various places. So I don't know that that is a quote, but have at that what you will. And then, but you can go even further back before the existentialist movement of the 1900s, 1910s, 1930s, that area. You could go even further back and talk about like Blaise Pascal and
sure.
Saint Augustine and people like that to some extent as maybe the origins of some of this. But so go watch Max Derritt's video if you have the time and you are invested in Chrono Trigger, which obviously you are if you're watching this. Go watch that. It's a really, really good commentary. And basically, his point in that video, and I would agree with it, is that the quality of the narrative of Chrono Trigger depends on who you are,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because if you skip all the side quests and you just are like, whatever, it's a pretty easy RPG and you just go right through the game and you beat the boss, fine. But a lot of the best stuff in the game is completely optional, like reviving Chrono, right? So are you doing the things to shape who you are? Are you doing the extra steps, right? It is a test of you. Did you, in the trial at the beginning, I know I
Mhm.
harped on that a lot, but the trial is a indicator to tell you to be thoughtful about your actions as you play this game.
Yeah, of
And
course.
therefore also, and by extension, it is there to tell you to do that in your own life, right? think about the impact that your actions could have across time. And so, what a cool way to demonstrate that. It's a thing that only a game can do, right? A movie can't do that in that way.
So you have, the characters are making their own, you know, I, would you say existential, meaning for themselves, because you have, Frog creates his meaning through his honor. You have Luca through responsibility. Robo kind of ties in with like the stewardship with Fiona a little bit, and also
Mhm.
like understanding for him, being human, or understanding what it is to be, you know, I'm going to say a life form in a way, not the life that, a biological life form, but a life form nonetheless. Um, Isla's is basically, her meaning is through survival, and not necessarily dominance, but not succumbing to nature, basically.
Yeah, they have these pivotal choices. Even Ayla, who is, I would say, one of the least developed characters, partially because her
Yeah.
dialogue is kind of fragmentary. That's the way they chose to write her and stuff. So it's kind of hard to do really hard hitting stuff whenever you've got a really like abrupt way of speech. But even she decides to extend mercy to Azala and offers to save him, or her. I guess Azala is a her. I forget that every time.
Yeah.
Um, Save Azala before the impact of the Red Star, which we know as Lavos, and all of these things, right? So all of these characters get these opportunities to do this, and if you do those additional quests, right? Frog receives absolution from Cyrus for his inability to act in a forthright and honorable way in the past, but not directly, right? We talked about this last time, but you know, because Frog is able to let go and just to decide to move forward and not be hung up on the past, he is able to unlock a lot of additional power and that kind of stuff. So, there's a lot of like shadow integration type things. If we get into the dimensional vortex to get the 13th ending, that is basically what it is. It is a shadow integration for Chrono and for Luca and for Marl, the Triforce characters that we
Yeah.
get from the original time zone, the present time zone. And so, yeah, I just love it. I love that it is so good. And to me, that is the ending of Chrono Trigger. As I say, I don't really like this other one. But real quick, let's pop through this list of
Good.
other endings. So there are 14. One of them is bad. A lot of people don't count those. They don't count the bad ending because you can get it whenever. The bad ending is the apocalypse, and you see in 2300 or in 1999, I guess, Lavos emerges, and there's uh, hellfire raining down and everything, and you see like a kind of response center where they're like, we've lost contact from poor dome, and all this stuff. You still have the future domes and all that, but they're being overrun, they're being obliterated. There's nothing they can do. And then the earth, the entity, kind of fades to gray, and it says, but the future refused to change. And so it kind of is a very, very dark, we could talk a long time about that, I feel like, if we wanted to. But the future refused. Not you didn't save the world. The future as a thing refused to change. It had the will to say, we're not going to fix this, I guess. So it's a very, very interesting kind of way of framing that. Comments on that one?
I really liked when they were in the dome, and they had like the command center, and they started kind of like popping out and seeing like the map, and then kind of zooming in there, and it's really digitalized and pixelated because of, but I just thought that was another way that they were able to use the limitations of the graphics back then, but still do something different with it. And it was I like that. It was fun.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, it's fun. It's a dark ending, but it is fun. It's presented well. It's cool.
yeah,
Um, so ending the official ending number one is Beyond Time. Everybody should have that achievement if you're playing on Steam because you should be done with that already. There are variations. Please look those up. Some of them are really funny, like about Chrono's cat, and there's different things that can go differently. So that's really cool. Reunion is ending two. This is if you don't have Chrono, and so you win, you defeat Lavos, but all the party members split up and kind of go their separate ways to their original timelines. And there's no longer any compulsion to go save Chrono. So, like, Marl wants to save Chrono, but nobody else does, basically. And it's kind of sad, at the very, very end, she'll be under the tree where Chrono would revive on Death Peak, and she'll
yeah.
like see a silhouette off in the distance. She'll kind of run towards him. There's variations on this one too. So like if the Epoch is destroyed and Magus is alive, Marl will hang the bell because it's also kind of a happy ending in a way, because you did win. But so King Guardia will give Nadia's bell to Marl, to Nadia herself, and she will try to hang it up instead of the king hanging it up. It's like this whole different variation of this. And like she'll get carried away by balloons, and it's kind of funny. But then it's really sad because Chrono's dead. So there's there's like a still shot of Chrono and Marl together, which is really cool. And that's in some of the endings, several of the different endings. That photo is there, but it's kind of sadder since Chrono's not there to experience that. And then, and by the way, you just jump in if you have anything to say on these. I'm just going to try to
Yep.
go right through them. The Dream Project is ending number 3. I'm following the wiki order. I'm sure
Oh,
there is a different order out there somewhere, but this is Meet the Staff. So
this is fun.
it's so cool, dude. It's at the end of time. And so all the character sprites are all these different developers for the game, and they all have funny things to say. Some of them are not that funny, but some of them are really hilarious to me. I'm going to call out specific ones. So Tetsuya Takahashi of the Xeno series, just favorite people of mine. So he's a Guardia soldier, and he'll say, if you thought this was tough, you should get a load of Final Fantasy IV. And then Yasunori Mitsuda, the composer, he is Toma, the adventurer
Mhm.
in this. And he says, well, now it's my turn to set off on a journey to see what the world holds in store. I wonder if I shall ever return. And he walks out of the room. Um, did you have anybody that you specifically wanted to call out on here?
Um, I don't know who this person is, but the line was funny. Let me pull it up right here. I just
Okay.
had it ready to go. Da, 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 da. It was Taizo Mamo. What you looking at, buddy? Trying to start something? Come on, bring it on. He's one of the fluffy uh Poizo dolls or something
Oh,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah,
or
yeah.
monsters or something like that. And just um yeah, I had Mitsuda too with as a
Yeah, I just love
Yasa
Mitsuda.
Yasa Yasuyuki Hone. This was my first project. Whew. Was I ever nervous? What a relief it's over. just just cute. I some of the things are somebody just stamped. Some of them I think are real personal messages.
Yeah.
Um, some cared more than others to put something funny or unique in there, but
Yeah, I mean,
I tried to do them all. It was a cool touch.
there's I think it's the Atropos model. I don't remember who the developer is for it, but they'll say, do you think there's going to be a sequel? And it's a yes or no. And regardless of whether you pick yes or no, they're like, wow, that'd be nice, wouldn't
No.
it? Wow, I hope I don't have to make another game like this. Or wow, yeah, that would be so cool. So
No.
and then once you kind of talk to everybody as much as you want, you can go back to Gaspar, and he will open Specchio's room where you encountered Specchio and learn magic for the first time. And that's where the dream team is. So Akira Toriyama, Nobuo Uematsu, Yuji Horii, Kazuhiko Aoki, Hironobu Sakaguchi. They are in this room in their little sprite formats. And so that's kind of fun. Akira Toriyama, excuse me, I don't know what's wrong with me today. He says, "Hey, Sasuke, Kika, Pop's working on games too. Are you seeing this? Isn't this great?" He's talking to his kids. It's a message to his kids. So that's super cool. Um, you know, Sakaguchi, he says, "Boy, it used to be that I'd get thinner after each game. Now I'm gaining weight instead. Ack, I must be getting old." So you do all this, and then it says, "Congratulations on finishing the game. You're now a member of the Dream Team. And since you blew through the game so fast, we've adjusted the credits to suit your style." And then it plays the credits at like 4 times speed. It just rolls right through them. And then, ta-da, you did it. This is supposed to be the hardest one to get because you have to do it right at the beginning of the game. You have Chrono by himself, or maybe Chrono and Marl, depending on when exactly you do it. But it's not easy, man, to do all that. So a lot of these we're going to blow right through from here. Successor of Guardia, aka the Wedding. Marl is actually a frog, apparently, and Frog like marries Queen Lean in 600 AD, and so the whole royal line is frogs. Everybody's like, "You have a lot of makeup on today," or whatever. It's so silly. Good Night is ending 5. A frog, a Keelwala, which is what Specchio looks like at the very first time you see him, and a new, or like goofing off and trying to keep each other from falling asleep and stuff. It's very silly. The Legendary Hero is ending 6. Robo and Atropos reenact the Millennial Fair opening, but it's like all futuristic and stuff. So it's like if the Millennial Fair was in 2300. And then Tata goes off to fight Magus and somehow gets to the throne room by himself. He is the legendary hero after all. But on the throne is Chrono, and Marl and Luca walk out, and they're so like it's like Ozzy and Flea and Slash have been replaced by our try
My
group of
cohorts.
heroes. It's so silly, but yep, there's that. The Unknown Past is ending 7. This is just characters kind of doing their own things and their own timelines. It's like just slice of life stuff for characters. There's really not much to that. The ending 8 is People of the Times, which is just a bunch of sprites. It's just like Toma drinking and like whatever. It's just random poses for random characters.
Some are better than
Ending,
others. Yeah.
yeah, right. Some of them are pretty cool. If you like sprite art, pixel art. The Oath, ending 9. This one is one of the more important ones that I have bolded. So Luca is working on Robo in her house. Chrono is sleeping against the wall. Frog is off to the side. Marl comes in and is about to serve tea to everyone. Frog says, "I have to leave. I have things to do." And he like stumbles over some blocks, which whenever I've done the soundtrack in this podcast series, I put a little piece of Toriyama art up that is a piece of art about this ending. It's Frog tripping over the books and stuff. And so he suddenly leaves. Marl's like, "But I just made tea," whatever. And so he leaves. And then it shows several scenes of him like basically climbing Magus's keep. So you get this ending before you defeat Magus in 600 AD. And so it'll just be Frog. We talked about this already to some extent.
Yeah, but on the
But
last one.
yeah, so Magus says, "So you came. Fiends and humans alike are nigh destroyed, save you and I. The ones who remain are but sheep. The victor of this battle shall have the world as his prize. No, he shall have the future." And then Frog says, "It seems as such, but it is no prize I seek. It is vengeance." He draws his sword. So they fight, and there is a figure up atop Magus's keep. I believe it is Magus. The way that you talked, I believe that you believe that it is Magus that wins the fight. It is not Frog that wins, but there is some ambiguity because it doesn't specifically show who is the winner. But it seems to be a dark ending. It seems to be a bad end. So again, perhaps Frog is not in the mental position that he needs to be in. He hasn't not the resolve as an individual to do this task. I don't know. Anything else you'd like to say there before we move on? We already covered it. So
yeah, I think
okay. Ending number 10, the Dino Age. The beginning of the game, the Millennial Fair and stuff, except everyone is a reptite for some reason. So, like, Chrono's a reptite, his mother's a reptite,
Just like real
everybody in the
life.
fair. Yeah. The lizard people at it again. So, ending number 11. It's like The Simpsons, man. They're predicting the future. So, ending 11, what the prophet seeks. So, this is just kind of a basically the party goes to the Millennial Fair and they're having a good time after defeating Lavos, but or I guess not after defeating Lavos. It's kind of just extra context. So it's
Yeah.
like if the prophet Magus completed his journey and Chrono and the party had not intervened. So he is going to the depths of the Ocean Palace to stop Lavos on his own. That is what happens. At the very end, it's like it says the end, but then it kind of turns blue and cool looking and it makes like a sword sound, like him hitting it with the scythe and stuff. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool little thing. Of course, we know that he loses, but
Well,
whatever. And just like the last one, kind of, with Frog. So, ending number 12, we're making great time on this. Memory Lane. You actually recorded this as a video and sent it to me as a text. This is Marl and Luca, and they're like, Marl's like, "Hey, the game's over. What the heck?" Like, um, there's a fourth wall break. Just kind of complaining that the game is over, and then Luca asks the art director to start showing them like memories that they have had. They want to go on a walk down memory lane. But instead, it just starts showing male characters from the various timelines, and they're like
yeah.
giving their comments on what a hunk that guy is or whatever. It's very funny. Like the prison guard guy, Marl is like, "Oh yeah, what a treat," I forget the dialogue, but it's so funny. Pierre, the defense attorney, Johnny from 2300 AD. He's a tricycle. It's not very cool,
Yeah.
whatever. um,
So
this is Chrono's only dialogue, is also, I guess, another notable thing. So they try to figure out what era or place that they want to go to next to do fun things, a place that has a lot of fun stuff to do, right? And then Chrono turns around and says, "Now." And it's like, oh, like as in the present? Okay. And then Marl and Chrono run off and Luca trails behind. So the only thing Chrono says is now. Take that for what you will. Now we are now. Ending number 13. This is Dreams Epilogue. This is the final ending for the DS, the iOS, the Android, and the Windows versions of the game. This was not added in the PlayStation. So you had the original game, then you had the anime cutscenes get added for the PlayStation, and then you had this ending and the dimensional vortex and all that stuff get added on all subsequent releases after that. So the three-dimensional vortexes, there's 12,000 BC, 1000 AD, 2300 AD, and you fight a whole bunch of guys in each of these places. You get some good equipment and stuff, but basically at the end of each one, at 12,000, there's a Shadow Marl that you fight in Guardia Castle. Once you win, Shadow Marl enters regular Marl and she gets powered up. So it's similar in a way to like Frog's thing, right? Resolving his unresolved internal strife. The 1000 AD vortex is notable because Dalton is there at the end again. And so Dalton will say, "If it weren't for you, I'd have been the ruler of an age all on my own. You robbed me of everything I'd worked so hard for. My wealth, my home, my loyal underlings. You took it all away. It's unforgivable. So come on, have a taste of the suffering I've endured because of you." And he fights you. And of course, he loses. He is pretty strong. But then he kind of leaves this as, "Don't you dare think this is settled. Just you wait. I'll raise the greatest army the world has ever seen in Poor and use it to wipe your pitiful little kingdom off the map." And he starts like doing his maniacal laughter animation and stuff. And then Magus, if Magus is with you, will say, "The dog yelps." So he has great one-liners. But you fight a shadow of Chrono, blah, blah, blah. So that is very important. We're going to talk about it in a second as to why that's all important. And then in 2300 AD, you fight Shadow Luca in her room, in her house. And yeah, there you go. So you get to the end, you fight Lavos. Lavos, there's a whole scene that plays out before this with two versions of Magus. If Magus is in your party, there's two of them on screen. And but basically I'm trying to summarize and not just read all the dialogue. Basically, it's here Lavos is no more. This is the future in which we have defeated him. So this is a post-game kind of thing. And Magus number 2 will say some things. There are as many worlds as there are potentialities. A new foe has arisen here in this endless expanse that is Time's Eclipse. So he gives it a name. This Time's Eclipse. It feasts upon thoughts, dreams, and memories. Do not think to meddle here. The enemy is my affair. Magus, again, wants to solo the final boss. He just can't get over it, And Gandalf fighting the Balrog, you know what I'm saying? Like, just, go. I got this. But he gives you the option to fight or not. You choose to fight, of course. But you fight, instead of Lavos, you fight Lavos with Shala on top. Kind of, it's reddened, very red version of Lavos. And so this enemy is called the Dream Devourer. And, the second Magus tries to fight it and gets injured and stuff. But then you fight it and you lose. And so then Shala will suck, or Shala Lavos, whatever, the Dream Devourer, will suck the party into a vortex, and then you're gone. And it's just Magus left. And I have to skip ahead in my notes here. But Shala kind of wakes up after the party has weakened it sufficiently. So after the fight, like I say, you lose. You cannot win this fight. So it sucks as an ending. Okay, cool. We lose. Yay. Shala will say, it is no doubt a matter of time before Lavos consumes the whole of my awareness. It was I, after all, who wished it. Wished from the depths of my sadness and despair that all that was would be erased. So she's so distraught. She's like, well, maybe we should just let existence be obliterated, right? So this is a very nihilistic kind of perspective. But I mean, you can imagine, right? Shala's life is a very sad story. And she tells Magus, the strength you wield now cannot free me. No, perhaps it is better said that no strength can. As so long as you lean upon the crutch of power, this world's sorrow can know no true end. Return to your own time now, dwell not on this. And she will suck Magus into a portal or whatever, and he will enter a endless black void. There is nothing there at all except for him. So she is, in the depths of sadness. She won't let him try to help anymore. I mean, he's already lost. The whole party's already lost. Your will is insufficient. I like the line, the crutch of power, so long as you lean upon the crutch of power. In other words, might cannot solve this problem, right? You cannot become strong enough to beat, to stop this thing from happening. So it's more of a fatalistic story at this point. And so Magus kind of wanders this black void. He says, so you mean to say that no matter how hard I strive, no matter how strong I grow, there is nothing I might do to save you. What purpose, then, does this existence serve? His whole motivation this whole time has been to save Shala and to put a stop to Lavos doing all this stuff. So if that's not possible, then, where do you go? And Magus says, if this is to be the way of things, then let me abandon all that was and fade away as well. Should a part of me somehow even then remain, then perhaps that will be the birth of something new. something with greater meaning than all this. Eventually, he, after some indeterminate amount of time, pops into Guardia Forest. And he's like, "Who am I? You know, what am I? What am I here to do? I have to try
This
to
is
remember." And
I watched this ending before we started because I hadn't played all the way to get there yet. Um, and it kind of reminds me of a Black Mirror episode where there's an AI version of the protagonist in the story who is basically an AI assistant in their home, and they use this to do things, just like we would use AI today, except for it can control things in the house, I think, or whatever. Fast forward through the story, they get mad at it for whatever purpose, and they fast forward time for that entity, that AI, and so it's in blackness or whiteness for years and years and years, hundreds of years, thousands, whatever it is. And I imagine that's kind of what happened with Magus, and he just is in this blackness, can't see himself, perhaps can't, he just loses the memories because they just fade with time. And um that's terrifying.
yeah, yeah, it's horrible. And so, like, I don't like this as an ending. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh wow, that sucks. And so, it's not. It's not the triumphant. It's not the triumph of human will and your ability to choose the future and all that. So it's like, well, the party loses. Magus, the tritagonist, he loses. We don't actually know what happens to him. It's like, okay, great. Well, that sucks. I mean, it's such a letdown. So to me, this is not the ending of the game, especially because the original already has the little anime cutscene to add Shala's pendant in and stuff. Like, I get it, but I also really don't. Having played Chrono Cross, although I played it a long time ago. Yeah. So I have a couple of final notes here. Dalton. So after this ending, after Magus goes off, there's a short anime cutscene that plays, and it shows the fall of Guardia in 1005 AD. So 5 years later, Dalton does raise an army and does take down Guardia Kingdom. And so that sucks too. That's also, I hate everything about it. It all sucks. And you do get a cool sword. Chrono will get a sword called Dream Seeker, which has a 90% crit rate, which is nuts.
That's insane.
And then a couple of final notes, and then we'll just wrap it up. So Magus, just to kind of tie this a little, I don't want to spoil a bunch of stuff, but Magus does appear, if you're wondering what happened to him after this weird, stupid ending. I don't want to say stupid. I just don't like it. I don't like the revisionist edition of a new ending, especially one that doesn't resolve main plot things. So Magus appears in the game Radical Dreamers, which is a text adventure, which is a direct sequel, as a character named Gil. So he has a new name. Gil is the name of the currency in Final Fantasy games. I don't know why it's called that or whatever. But there is also, I have not played Radical Dreamers, by the way. There's also a character named Guile, like Guile from Street Fighter, in Chrono Cross, who looks somewhat like Magus, but canonically is not Magus. He was originally going to be Magus, but they, as Gil, he was going to be Gil again, just like in Radical Dreamers, he was Gil. But this idea was deemed too complex because of how much crazy story stuff there is to try to tie together. And so they renamed him to Guile and decided he is not actually Magus. That's not a thing. He just looks like him. So it's understandable, though, because I don't know if I've said this or if you're aware, but Chrono Cross has 45 playable characters. Wow. So it's already pretty dang complex. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is a little silly when it comes to complexity. And so I kind of get it. Also, I don't, because it annoys me, because Magus is cool. But the Japanese version of Chrono Cross, his name is Alf, not Guile. And Alf could be a reference to Janice's cat, Magus's cat, Alphador. So take that for what you will. I just wanted to give some little, if you decide to play Chrono Cross, which you should, it's a good game, although it is very complicated. To get the true ending that actually makes sense for how this ending sets up you to experience Chrono Cross, use a guide. Like, do not even attempt to just play that game blind. Just use a guide. You will be very unhappy if you don't. So, because first of all, it's not a short game, and second of all, like anyway, it's I don't want to just ramble about that, but it is just use a guide. That's I beg you, I beg you, just use a guide if you're going to do that, because you will be like, what the hell? This doesn't tie into that at all. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Existentialist masterpiece, wonderful game, wonderful soundtrack. I absolutely just adore it. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to play this again, and I am thankful for everyone who watched us play this together. It feels like a long time, but it's been really, really good. I've had a great time.
For me, I think this game isn't been about winning necessarily. It's been about learning responsibility, having restraint in certain situations, um, but also choosing what matters. You had the main characters. The climax really wasn't Lavos. It was everything culminating to Lavos. You had all the side quests. That was the side quests were the game, I
Yeah.
think, in a way,
Yeah.
because they tied up all of all the stories. It completed everything to my satisfaction. Um, so I think, for me, I think I'm just pulling up, yeah, it's a couple of ideas that I was just wanting to
Sure.
think about here, but I lost it. Come here.
Do you think, while you're pulling up your notes, do you think that you might ever be interested in visiting Chrono Cross at some point?
I mean, yeah, if it's I know one of the challenging things that will happen is if we play games that are 100 plus hours, like let's say Persona games or um Xenoblade and or any Xeno games
Yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah.
That
Xenosaga,
it'll be
Xenogears,
difficult
yeah, yeah,
to really put that together in a watchable format, perhaps. I don't know, but I'm definitely willing to attempt that. Especially taking times on those games, because even with this game, I probably could have completed it within 20-25 hours. I spent more time because of the format that we were doing. I really wanted to be a little bit more thorough. There's certain things that when I play, I kind of gloss over, and that's just time restraints and things like that. So I think setting up a time to do this was really helpful to focus on it. Um, Chrono Trigger, it didn't tell me what matters, but it showed me, um, because it showed me pieces of myself. I think that's what I think is a great game. We kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, is that this reflects who you are as a person.
yep.
And so,
Yeah, I mean, again, you don't even have to revive Chrono, right? But like, what does that say about you? If you
right.
don't, right? And so, yeah, I just love it. It's worth kind of piecing out the different ways that things can happen and seeing some of the other endings and all that. Like, watch a YouTube video. You don't have to play the game 2 times. The dimensional vortex stuff is not short. And so it's like, just watch it on YouTube. Like, you unless you're motivated by achievements, don't do that unless you just really want to. But at least go and experience some of this if you haven't already done so. It's really cool. It's really cool to spend a little bit more time. It's almost like the additional episodes they did with Gurren Lagann. I hate to just bring that up all the time. I have seen other shows, okay, but you know, like, there's this little extra slice of life type of things, extra little things that kind of flesh out the world and give you more perspective on stuff that it's like more time with characters that you've come to know and love. And I just think that's so cool. And I really love the dream team ending, where you get to interact with all the developers and all that.
Yeah.
I mentioned Sea of Stars. Sea of Stars is very much as a a Chrono Trigger game. It is meant to be in the style of Chrono Trigger, and they do a thing like that. It's much harder to find, but they have a whole developer area and stuff you can like find and talk to the devs. It's pretty cool stuff. I really like that, and that just feels like a '90s game thing that people don't do anymore. So, you
This
know,
game, I didn't feel railroaded ever. This game was all about consent. You can choose whether to engage or not. You can
right,
choose to get Chrono. You can choose to go fight the main boss right away if you want.
right, and it
Once
makes
you get
all the
a
difference,
certain way.
man. It's like, yeah,
It's
obviously you
so
want
cool.
to play the game and get all the stuff, and be a completionist. Maybe it's obvious, maybe it's not, but the fact that the game doesn't make you do it, right? It's kind of like Breath of the Wild and stuff like that too. In a way, it's like you can just go straight to the end, grab a couple of items and just go straight to Hyrule. Go in the castle, fight the last boss, just go,
No
right?
spoilers, please.
Okay, no spoilers. Okay, but I
I
mean,
I'm on the plateau and
okay, okay.
I've,
I'm not gonna say anything. Okay,
please. No, I'm
okay.
just kidding.
But Breath of the
I've
Wild, Tears
seen
of the
I've seen
Kingdom,
I've seen all of it. So
you can go straight to the end, right? And so, but because you can do that, it makes the decision on when to do that more meaningful, right?
mhm.
So I really like that as well. It's a good point. Um, that's all I have to say. That I
Uh,
am I
one
am
other
done.
thing that I
Okay.
wanted to just say, two things, excuse me.
Okay. Okay.
Um, Real quick, individuation with Carl Jung.
Mhm.
I kind of saw the seven playable characters as maybe archetypes of you have Chrono the self. Marl is kind of like this isn't like completely like, verbatim, but like the heart, the anima, Luca's intellect, Frog is honor, um, warrior, Robo's machine, emerging soul, Isla's instinct, primal self, and then Magus is the shadow
Mm. Yeah.
in a way. So that's there's I think there's a little bit to that, but um,
Well,
and then the last thing.
I do have one more
Go ahead,
little
go ahead,
piggyback off of
please.
that. We talked about the Triforce and kind of the shadow Triforce thing. We talked about that a long time ago, many episodes
Yeah,
ago now. But like to me, very much like those characters, Magus is not from 600 AD. He's the odd man out. But you know, Luca, Marl, and Chrono with this kind of negative space, like dark character that comes in and kind of fills in when one of the pieces goes missing, aka Chrono. Right. I think that's a very interesting. I don't necessarily want to deconstruct that in great detail, but I think there's something
I like that
there.
idea. Okay, and then the last thing is what we had. So before we even reach Lavos, the game has been developing like this overwhelming power, and there were three ways that they tried to beat it. You had Zeal, tried
Mhm.
to control it.
Mhm.
You had Magus, tried to fight it alone.
Mhm.
He had the will, but he didn't. He wasn't able to do it by himself. He just you know stuck in his revenge and things like that.
Right.
And then you had the Earthbound, or ignore it. So
Mm.
just completely um you know don't even think about it. It's no change though. You persist, but you don't get to shape the future or anything like that. Whereas then we have the our players approach where we're restoring the ecosystems. We were dealing with personal traumas and building relationships over time. And that was the appropriate way to approach power, is with stewardship, with restraint. uh you can have the two ends, is eschew all power or absorb all power. and
Right.
and I think if we talk about Star Wars, Jedi and Sith, those are two broken systems already. We always assume like the Jedi are the good guys, but in a lot of the extra material, and even from the movies that we can see, that wasn't the right way either. There's the middle path. There's the individual path, the path that each one of us chooses, because
Right.
it's within us. We have the answers within us.
Well, and
And
you have the wise men, the three sages, the three characters, the Melchior, Gaspar, and Balthazar, right?
Balthazar.
They are kind of a representation in some sense of both sides of that, right? Because they tried to help Shala, or excuse me, Zeal harness the power and were cast out and see that that was a foolish endeavor, but they're not dead, right? So they go in their own ways. The only way that Chrono is alive at the end, if you choose to revive him, is because one of them has provided the time egg, and one of them has helped you to get up Death Peak. You know what I mean? Like it's a unified effort of these failed, flawed creatures. Getting back to Gnosticism, right? Like imperfect beings can't create perfection, but they can do something, right? You can choose how you are going to be, how you're going to exist in the world and interact. And so they are, in some sense, we can't do the quest without the help of these people that already failed, right? And I think that's very, very powerful and instructive. I like it.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
That's to summarize.
We're good with snappy sayings.
Dream teamwork makes the dream team. Oh crap!
Lava stream. Yeah, we're
I
losing it. We're losing
yeah.
it.
better abort now. So yeah, what an incredible experience. I know we're going to be talking about the music for this for a long time, and in some sense it never leaves my head, right? It's like always just right there. I love this soundtrack. It's part of me. And so from here, we will move to the world of Chrono Trigger. I mean, I keep doing that. We're going to play Golden Sun. And that has its own interesting story. We'll get into all those things. It's going to be a lot of fun, but we are going to take a break in between games. We'll record at least 2 or 3 episodes in between on other topics. Let us know, what you'd like us to kind of hash out, what things are going on in the world of gaming that we should maybe explore as we have an opportunity. Because once we get back into another game, we're going to be on game mode for a while. And so, yeah, go sign up on the Patreon if you'd like to participate in that stuff, see when the episodes are up. If you are a donating member on Patreon, you will get the episodes as soon as I edit them. And hopefully you're enjoying my new microphone, this first episode with new microphone. Woohoo. So I think that's all I have to say. I know I've said that like 4 times, but this has just been great. So appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for joining us on this. We will see you in the next one. I do have our outro that we wrote. So thank you so much for watching. Remember to find meaning in stories. And no matter what you may be going through, do not give up. We'll see you next time.